As players, owners, and coaches decide for a second straight week whether to kneel, stand, or lock arms during the national anthem. President Trump doubling down on his criticism of kneeling as a form of protest, tweeting last night, very important that NFL players stand tomorrow and always for the playing of our national anthem, respect our flag and our country. So far, we've seen a majority of players standing today during the anthem, but some have taken a knee. ESPN's Darren Rovell noted just 11 players from the early slate of games knelt or sat. We also have seen some teams kneel in unity before the anthem played, like the Baltimore Ravens. They were greeted by cheers and boos in their home stadium. CNN's Kaylee Hartung joins us now live outside the Mercedes-Benz Stadium here in Atlanta. So what are fans saying there?
Fred, it's becoming increasingly clear to me that the message originally intended by NFL players protesting that of racial injustice and police brutality, that message has been lost amid this controversy between the president's tweets, players' actions, and fans' reaction. This entire conversation has gotten muddied. I think if you listen to some of my conversations with fans, you'll see the clear difference between the passion some feel versus the offense others take.
My stance is that the flag is our freedom, and, you know, I respect that. That's what I was brought up to, stand at attention and place my hand on my heart.
What people have to realize and understand that it's not about the flag. It's about the inequality, the injustices, police brutality that's been going on for the longest against minorities. It's not about the flag.
Everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but for me personally, I think you stand. For them, they don't see it that way, and that's their choice.
As the national anthem was played here in Atlanta today, members of the Falcons team stood, most locked arms. 6 members of the Buffalo Bills took a knee. Just before that game started, one Bills fan told me her next-door neighbor burned his season tickets in his backyard last week after seeing some of the Bills players take a knee in protest. There have been reports of one stadium worker in Buffalo who left the stadium and quit his job there after he saw Bills players taking that action. But Fred, as you mentioned, saw the Ravens players in Baltimore take a knee before the anthem, and they were still booed. When you hear that, you have to question the understanding that many have of where this conversation began.
All right, Kaylee Hartung, thank you so much outside Atlanta Mercedes-Benz Stadium. All right, joining me right now to talk about all of this, U.S. track and field Olympian, former professional football player, the iconic John Carlos. Good to see you.
It's good to be here.
Well, this is really something from your perspective because no one can forget that iconic image. You're also the author of an extraordinary book, The John Carlos Story, the sports moment that changed the world. And this is that iconic moment, 1968 Mexico City Games. You and fellow U.S. Olympian Tommie Smith raising the fist there, and even Australian, Norman also there, who also was part of that movement for a statement of human rights. So what are your thoughts when you see the protest from last week and Colin Kaepernick of the 49ers? How do you see similarities from those moments to what you and Tommie Smith were standing for?
Well, first of all, I think it takes a tremendous amount of courage to swim upstream against the tide when you see something wrong and decide that I need to bring attention to the plight of those individuals that's being affected by law enforcement not doing the right thing or racism in general throughout society. You know, we have a history in this country. It's not something that, wasn't made up. This history is documented in terms of slavery and so forth on down the line to the present attitude as law enforcement might have had for various people of color throughout the country. I mean, it's documented. Individuals have died for merely selling a pack loose cigarettes. An individual has died as a kid playing in the park with a cap gun. A young lady died as a result of a traffic stop. It's on and on and on. A young man went to the store. He was killed. No one is prosecuted for these things. We're not saying that law enforcement as a whole is a corrupt organization, but we say we have some corrupt officers involved in law enforcement, and no one is taking the lead to say we're going to weed these individuals out. They're trying to protect them by shielding them and saying whatever black people do in terms of saying we want to face these things and have conversations about them, they're still telling the same thing that they talked 50 years, 100 years ago.
Why is it that people are interpreting this moment so differently? We just saw it exemplified by the two women outside of the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. One says, you know, this is disrespecting the flag. The other says it's not about the flag. It's about human rights. It's about justice. What is your reaction when you hear that people see the symbolism behind what's happening here so differently?
Well, you know, when you sit back and you think about the flag, this flag in the anthem says protection for all, freedom and justice for all. That's not true. That's just a written statement that's a fallacy. It's not true. When you sit back and you look at the divide that we have in this nation in terms of black people, the way they see things opposed to how white people see things, there's a fact that white people see things, but they don't feel the things that black people see. Black people see what's going on, but we have a sense of feeling when your kid goes out to the store and don't return home, or your daughter goes out to the store and don't return home, or your husband goes out and don't return home. White folks don't have to deal with that. They don't come out their door and see drugs running rampant up and down their communities. And they might say, well, it's black on black. But yet and still, blacks didn't bring drugs into the community. We didn't have planes to fly heroin and cocaine and so forth into our communities, but it's there. It's law enforcement's job also to protect us against these drugs. But for eons, it's been going on that way. The white folks, they don't seem to understand this because this is not immediately affecting them. It's not their kids that's in this situation.
We've got even polling that kind of best represents, it does represent a lot of what you're saying. Just look along black and white lines, you know, recent polling as to what this kneeling means. You know, politically, it's almost in half in terms of supporting of what the president had to say, but blacks, you know, seeing the athletes are, well, wait a minute, this is not the actual, athletes are wrong for protesting during the national anthem. Overwhelmingly, whites see it as wrong. Blacks don't by 12%. That was actually not the polling I was looking for, but that it is represented in terms of how differently and interpreted differently blacks and whites see this.
Well, you know, let me just say this. My parents and my brothers and my uncles, all of them military people. Even my son, after 1968, they served 25 years in the military. When you sit back and you think about these individuals, they fought and they stood on the front line to protect the right of these individuals to take a knee. The First Amendment, they fought to protect that right. But yet and still, you know, I look at the President of the United States with his great divide that he's creating in this nation, and I sit back and I think to myself, wow, I remember when Barack Obama was running for president and he chose to say as a citizen, I don't believe you're a citizen. I need to see your birth certificate. Well, John Carlos here on your show today, as a citizen, tell the President of the United States, I would like to see your discharge papers from the military. You're waving the patriotic flag. Show me where you was on the front line. Show me where your dad was on the front line, or show me where your kids were on the front line. I can show you mine. I like to see you go full circle and say, hey, other than me waving the flag and talking about whether individuals are standing or seated for the national anthem, show me your true patriotism.
There have been so many athletes. I mean, you, of course, you know, Tommy Smith, you know, Jim Brown, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bill Russell, Muhammad Ali. The list is long in terms of athletes who have used their power of celebrity, being elite athletes to take a stand, to send a message. What is your message to young athletes today, and how they're able to use their celebrity to help legislate change, to help in the consciousness of America and thinking, to help bridge divides?
Well, first of all, you have to take into account that it goes back farther than that. It goes back to Jack Johnson, or Paul Robeson, or Harriet Tubman. All of these individuals that put themselves on the line to make change, not for themselves. They don't anticipate change coming immediately, but they definitely want change for their kids. My father would not go to the First World War and think that I would be fighting in terms of race relations in this country. Here I am 80 years later, and I'm fighting for the same thing that he fought for. These individuals are making statements now to say, hey, my career is a fine situation for me. God blessed me with this talent. But it goes beyond the talent that God gave me. I'm concerned about the talents that's being lost in my community. Those individuals that have the cure for cancer, or those individuals that have the cure for heart disease will never come to fruition based upon racism. These individuals right now are stepping up and saying, we are setting the tide now. Because it's not for us that we make these statements, it's for our kids to make sure that they had a better opportunity in life down the line. We play on an equal playing field. And with the president, with his rhetoric going on constantly, you see racism running rampant throughout this nation now. You go on any college campus, you start to see a noose hanging, or you see a KKK sign, or you see a SWAT sticker. And this is running rampant all over the nation now, based on his demise, putting this rhetoric out in the nation now.
You made that statement with Tommie Smith 50 years ago.
Absolutely.
And I know you said earlier, this is like deja vu.
Absolutely, it is deja vu. You know, when you sit back and you think, 50 years ago, I felt like I was a horticulture or a gardener, you know, and I planted seeds and tilled the earth, you know, and watered it. And then 50 years later, here we are, we see the fruits of our labor. As many individual kids that understand now far greater than they did 50 years ago about it's about worth self-sacrifice to make a better world. And they're younger doing this thing now. They think about their fathers and their grandfathers in terms of the situation they were put in, because I had to accept certain things because I need to feed my family. But now these kids are starting to say, hey man, it's not about accepting, it's about we want change and we want change now. We are tired of hand, give us time. Your day is coming.
And really quick before I let you go, immediately after that protest, that was not celebrated like it is today as an iconic moment. You did pay a price for that, didn't you?
The price was worth it. I would sacrifice one more time today, because it's not about my sacrifice, it's about revolutionizing the industry to make them understand that everyone deserves a fair shot in life.
John Carlos, thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll be right back.